what if I told you that roughly 80% of what you are going to do at work today is completely useless?
And not just slightly inefficient, by the way. I mean, literally mathematically and biologically useless.
Right. Like, you know that feeling when you're at the gym and you accidentally bump the treadmill speed up to, like, 400%?
Where you're just instantly sprinting for your life.
Exactly. Your legs are a blur. Your heart is just pounding out of your chest. You feel like you are absolutely flying, but you're actually going exactly nowhere.
You're just burning through all your energy reserves to stare at the exact same spot on the gym wall.
Yeah. And that is basically modern work culture in a nutshell. It's this total illusion of momentum.
Which is why we're here today. We've all been sold this massive cultural lie, you know?
We really have.
This deeply embedded idea that more hours, more hustle, and just sheer exhaustion somehow automatically equal more output.
So, today's deep dive is really on a mission to completely dismantle that lie. We're digging into a stack of source material today that covers, well, advanced performance science.
Yeah, specifically looking at the whole philosophy of doing less to achieve more. Which I know sounds like a bumper sticker, but the stakes here are actually incredibly high.
They are, because this lie is just so deeply ingrained in all of us.
Society basically demands that if you have free time, you must be falling behind.
Right, like if you aren't completely overwhelmed, you just aren't ambitious enough.
Exactly. So the paradox we are exploring today is pretty radical. What if the actual path to achieving more is doing significantly less?
And we should clarify, we aren't talking about, like, lowering your standards, so we're just taking it easy.
No, not at all. We are talking about making a fundamental shift in how you view your time and, more importantly, your energy.
Right, because the first uncomfortable truth we have to face in all this research is that busyness is simply not the same as progress.
Which is a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people.
Oh, totally. Because we've equated exhaustion with effectiveness, right? We just assume that if we aren't completely drained by 5 o'clock, we didn't really do our jobs.
But if busyness isn't progress, we have to figure out where our results actually come from.
Which takes us to, well, I love this story from the sources. We have to travel back to an Italian garden in the year 1906.
Yeah, the famous garden. So there was this economist named Vilfredo Pareto, and he was just tending his garden when he noticed this really strange biological pattern.
He was looking at his pea plants, right?
Yeah. He noticed that roughly 80% of his peas were coming from just 20% of his pea pods.
The overachieving peas.
Exactly. But he didn't just stop at peas. Being an economist, he started looking at macroeconomics.
Naturally.
And he discovered the exact same pattern in Italy's wealth distribution. 80% of the land was owned by 20% of the people. And this pattern just kept appearing everywhere. It showed up in nature, in business revenue, in human output. It's what we now know as the Pareto principle.
Or the 80-20 rule. Which, I mean, people throw 80-20 around a lot in boardrooms to sound smart.
Oh, all the time.
But if you actually do the math on what that means for your daily routine, the implications are pretty terrifying.
They really are. Because if 20% of your actions produce 80% of your results, well, the inverse is also biologically and mathematically true.
Right, which means...
It means 80% of your daily effort is producing almost nothing, by definition.
That's just wild to think about.
Yeah, the vast majority of your stress, all your scrambling, the time you spend sitting in pointless meetings, it's basically useless. You are working yourself to the point of exhaustion for your least productive activities.
Okay, I have to push back a little here, though, playing devil's advocate. Are the sources genuinely suggesting that you can just look at your job, confidently pick out the 80% that's useless, and just, I don't know, ignore it?
I mean, I know it sounds incredibly reckless at first glance.
Right. Doesn't a business just fall apart if everyone drops 80% of their responsibilities?
You would think so.
Oh.
But when we look at the data on how elite performers actually operate, this is exactly what they do.
Really?
Yeah. They don't try to do more things. They do fewer things, but with surgical intention.
Yeah.
Think about Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
He reportedly spends 80% of his day just reading and thinking in his office.
Just reading and thinking.
Literally. He only makes a handful of actual investment decisions a year.
That reminds me of the Steve Jobs example from the material, too. He was famous for saying no to, like, 1,000 perfectly good product ideas just so he could say yes to the one thing that actually mattered.
Exactly. Or look at Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh, the anatomy stuff.
Yeah, he spent years purely studying how light hits water. He spent years dissecting human anatomy before he would even pick up a brush to paint a portrait.
Wow. So they really aren't trying to just clear out a 40-item to-do list so they can feel productive.
No, not at all. They're obsessively protecting that 20% that genuinely moves the needle.
Yeah.
Everything else is just treated as secondary noise.
So, for you listening right now, just mentally scan your own to-do list for today. Out of, say, 30 items on there, how many of those would genuinely change your life or your career if you finish them?
If you're being really honest.
Honestly, usually it's maybe 2, maybe 3.
Yep. Everything else is just the dopamine hit of crossing off noise.
Which introduces a pretty critical biological problem, right? Once you realize you should be doing fewer things, how do you actually approach those vital tasks that survive the cut?
That's the real challenge. Because traditional productivity advice is historically so obsessed with time management.
Oh, yeah. Waking up at 4 in the morning, color coding your calendar into these perfect 15-minute blocks.
But the thing is, time is a renewable resource.
Right.
Tomorrow, you reliably get another 24 hours.
Right.
Energy is not renewable in the same way.
Where?
Waking up at 4 a.m. means absolutely nothing if you sit down at your desk and you're just totally depleted.
You're just staring blankly at a screen,
Right.
literally willing your brain to work.
Exactly. And this is where the research introduces this brilliant concept from pharmacology. It's called the minimum effective dose.
Okay, break that down for us.
So in medicine, the minimum effective dose is the smallest amount of a drug required to produce a desired effect.
Okay, so just enough to work.
Right. And if you take any more than that specific amount, it doesn't cure you faster. It just adds toxicity and negative side effects.
And if you take less, it does nothing at all.
Exactly.
Applying that medical concept to our daily work habits makes so much sense. Because our default setting in this culture is always like, more is better.
Oh, absolutely. We think if 20 minutes of exercise is good, an hour must make me a superhuman.
Right. But according to this performance science, more isn't better. It's just extra fatigue. It drains the exact energy you need for your 20% tasks.
And the specific numbers the science gives us for these doses are fascinating. Let's look at exercise like you mentioned.
What's the dose?
The minimum effective dose for cardiovascular benefits and crucial cognitive benefits is just 20 to 30 minutes of high-intensity training, 3 to 4 times a week.
Wait, really? Just 20 to 30 minutes? Why that specific amount? Like, what is actually happening biologically there?
So that specific dose creates something called BDNF. It stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
Okay.
Basically, think of it as brain fertilizer. It helps your brain create new neural pathways, which allows you to think faster, remember more, make better decisions.
Wow.
But here's the catch. Pushing that to a 2-hour grueling workout doesn't magically produce a flood of extra BDNF.
It just makes you tired.
Worse than tired. It floods your system with cortisol and makes you way too exhausted to actually sit down and do your deep work.
Okay, that is huge. What about the minimum effective dose for sleep? That's always a big one.
7 to 9 hours. Period.
No exception.
No exceptions. Hitting that target natively boosts your cognitive performance by up to 40%.
40%. And yet you have people paying thousands of dollars for like random supplements and biohacking gear trying to get a 5% edge.
I know. And meanwhile, they're artificially handicapping themselves by sleeping 5 hours a night.
It's completely counterproductive. And what's really interesting to me from the sources is that this minimum effective dose idea, it applies to how we handle information and collaboration too.
Oh, absolutely. Email's a perfect example.
Right. Constantly keeping your inbox open on a second monitor and checking it every 5 minutes, that isn't actual work.
The sources literally call it anxiety management disguised as work.
Yes. So what is the minimum effective dose for email?
2 30-minute focused windows a day. That's it.
Okay, I love that. And then there are meetings, which the default meeting is an hour, right? But that's just because the calendar app defaults to an hour block.
Exactly. It's arbitrary. The minimum effective dose for a meeting is actually 20 minutes with a strict timer.
20 minutes. But, okay, what about collaboration? I feel like if we cut all meetings to 20 minutes, don't we lose some of that brainstorming magic, like when people just talk and naturally explore ideas?
You'd think so, but the data suggests the exact opposite. Constraint breeds creativity.
Okay, how so?
Well, when you have an hour, people repeat themselves. They get off track. They fill the first 15 minutes with pleasantries about the weekend.
Very true.
But when you have 20 minutes and a ticking clock, the human brain ruthlessly prioritizes. You get to the core issue so much faster.
So everything beyond that 20 minutes is just
It's usually conversational toxicity.
conversational toxicity. I'm stealing that phrase. Okay, so let's say you've protected your energy, You found your 20% tasks. You finally sit down to do the work.
Yep.
Immediately, modern culture just tries to destroy your focus by demanding that you juggle everything.
Oh, yeah. A Slack message pops up.
An email pings, your phone buzzes on the desk.
It's relentless. And this is where we have to completely dismantle the superpower myth of multitasking.
It really is a myth, isn't it?
It is. It is not a skill. It is definitely not something you should brag about on a resume. The human brain does not, and biologically cannot, multitask when it comes to complex thought.
So what are we actually doing when we think we're multitasking?
What your brain is actually doing is rapidly task switching. It is jumping frantically from the spreadsheet to the email to the phone and back to the spreadsheet.
And every single time you jump, there's a biological toll to pay.
A severe toll. The neuroscience refers to it as attention residue.
Attention residue. Okay, explain that.
So when you switch from writing an email back to analyzing a complex spreadsheet, your neural pathways don't just instantly snap to the new task.
Like a light switch.
Right, it's not a light switch. The neurochemicals routing your thoughts are literally still flowing down the old pathways.
Oh, wow. So it's creating like a biochemical traffic jam in your prefrontal cortex.
That is the perfect way to visualize it. Part of your cognitive processing power is literally stuck running in the background, still thinking about the tone of that email.
That's why.
And that biochemical traffic jam drops your effective IQ in the moment by 10 to 15 points.
Wait, a 15-point IQ drop?
Yes.
That is massive. I mean, that's the difference between being gifted and being perfectly average.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It is functionally worse than the cognitive decline you experience from losing a full night of sleep.
You're kidding.
No. When you multitask, you are artificially inducing sleep deprivation on your own intellect.
Okay, think about your phone right now. To everyone listening, you're probably listening to this deep dive while, I don't know, doing the dishes or driving or checking emails in another tab.
Guilty.
Right. And that is the attention residue we're talking about. But think about this. If the entire world is constantly task switching, constantly lowering their effective IQ by 15 points because they're addicted to notifications,
Yeah.
what happens to the person who can actually just focus?
Oh, that person becomes extraordinarily valuable because the ability to concentrate without distraction is becoming increasingly rare.
This brings up Cal Newport's concept from the sources, right? Deep work.
Exactly. The data strongly supports the argument that 4 hours of deep work will beat 8 hours of shallow, fragmented work every single time.
Because in those 4 hours, you're entering what the psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi called the flow state.
Yes, flow. But to get there, the science says you need 90 minutes. 90 continuous minutes of monotasking.
Just one task.
Just one. No extra browser tabs open. Phone is in another room entirely. No background television. Just you and the one vital task.
But, I mean, recognizing you need 90 minutes of flow is one thing. Actually finding that uninterrupted time in a world that demands you are constantly available, that feels basically impossible to most people.
It does feel impossible because you can't just try to ignore the noise around you. You have to actively remove it from your environment.
So how do we actually protect that space without completely alienating our coworkers or our families?
Well, the research introduces this philosophy of strategic subtraction.
Strategic subtraction.
Yeah. There's a historical anecdote about Michelangelo carving the statue of David.
Oh, I've heard this. When they asked him how he created this masterpiece.
Right. And he essentially said he just looked at the block of marble and removed everything that wasn't the angel.
Wow.
He didn't add clay to make it better. He subtracted stone.
That is such a profound way to look at productivity. The most successful people, they don't go looking for a new productivity app or, another life hack to cram into their morning routine.
No, they subtract commitments. They look at their calendar and just start chiseling away the noise.
Which brings us to a quote I really loved from Greg McKeown's work on essentialism in our sources. He says, "If you don't prioritize your life, someone else will."
That is so true. Saying no isn't about being uncooperative or rude. It's an exercise in pure resource allocation.
You're just defending your finite energy.
Exactly.
And there's this devastatingly effective question in our source material to help with this. Listeners, look at your current obligations. The committees, the side projects, the recurring social events you go to.
Yeah, pick one.
Pick one and ask yourself this. If I weren't already doing this, would I choose to start it today?
Oh, that's brutal. But if the answer is no, you have to cut it. It's really just momentum and guilt keeping you there.
And the results of this kind of ruthless subtraction are literally historic.
They really are. Look at Sir Isaac Newton.
Okay, what did he do?
Well, During the bubonic plague of 1665, he spent 18 months in lockdown isolation.
Sounds familiar.
Right. But he was totally free from all social obligations, free from university politics. He said no to everything else, and in that subtracted empty space, he invented calculus and discovered gravity.
Unbelievable. Or, to bring it back to a modern context, Warren Buffett points out that really successful people say no to almost everything.
Yes.
But I imagine some people listening are thinking, well, sure, Warren Buffett can say no. If I say no to my boss, I get fired.
Right. That's a very real concern.
So how does a normal person apply this?
It's about negotiating boundaries, not outright rebellion. When your boss hands you a new project, you don't just flat out say no.
Okay.
You say, I can absolutely take this on. Which of these other 3 projects should I pause so I can give this new one the focus it needs?
Oh, that's smart. You make the resource constraint visible to them.
Exactly. You force them to help you prioritize.
You're shifting the burden of choice back onto them. I love that. Okay, so we've talked about finding the 20%, protecting our energy, doing the deep work, and strategically subtracting the noise.
Yep, that's the framework.
But for high achievers, I think the most uncomfortable reality in all of this data is what you are actually supposed to do when you aren't working.
Oh, resting. Because our culture treats rest as a reward.
Right. It's like something you only get to do after you've thoroughly exhausted yourself and earned it.
Which is completely absurd if you compare it to human biology and physical training.
Like elite athletes.
Yeah.
No Olympic coach makes their sprinter run maximum sprints 10 hours a day, every single day.
Of course not. They know the muscle isn't built during the sprint itself. The biological adaptation happens during the recovery.
Right. If you skip the recovery, you don't get stronger. You just get injured. So why do we think the human brain works any differently?
It doesn't. And the neuroscience backing this up is really compelling. There's this brain network called the default mode network.
The default mode network, what does that do?
Well, what's crucial to understand is that during rest, your brain doesn't actually switch off. It just switches modes.
So it stops processing external input and starts like untangling all the internal stuff.
Exactly. When you are daydreaming or just staring at a window, your default mode network activates. It starts processing information, making connections, and solving complex problems completely below your conscious awareness.
Which is exactly why you get your best ideas in the shower.
Yes, because the shower is the only place left where you aren't bringing your phone.
Very true. It's one of the few times modern humans actually let their minds wander freely.
The shower isn't magic. It's just the only environment where your brain is allowed to connect the dots without constant digital interference.
So strategic rest isn't just like taking a nap. The source material lays out very specific biological rules for this, right?
It does. Deliberate breaks every 90 minutes. And a real break means staring out a window or taking a walk. It does not mean scrolling social media.
Right, because scrolling is still input.
Exactly. Your brain is still processing information, which means the default mode network cannot turn on.
It's blocked.
Yep. True rest also requires one full weekly recovery day with absolutely no optimization, no planning the week ahead, just living.
And taking real disconnected vacations.
The data is unambiguous on this. People who completely disconnect return with higher creativity and much better decision-making skills. The emails will wait. The world will not end.
It really requires a massive identity shift. We have to move away from this culture where we wear "I'm so busy" as a badge of honor.
It's almost a flex right now, isn't it? Like, look how indispensable I am. My schedule's totally booked.
Right, but we need to shift to an identity where we are proud of being focused, proud of actually having empty space on the calendar.
There's this great cinematic image from the source text that sums this up perfectly. Think of a single candle flame.
Okay, a candle?
A candle doesn't rush. It doesn't multitask. It just burns steadily and gives light to everything around it.
That is a beautiful way to think about it, just burning steadily.
Yeah. And if we go back to that pharmacology concept of the minimum effective dose, anything beyond that dose doesn't just waste time, it adds toxicity. A packed calendar isn't a sign of importance. It's literally a toxic environment for your cognitive performance. You are overdosing on busyness.
Overdosing on busyness. Wow. Well, to wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
So earlier we talked about attention residue, how jumping between work tasks leaves part of your brain stuck in the past, creating that biochemical traffic jam.
Right.
But what about rest residue?
Oh, that is a fascinating way to look at it.
Right. If our downtime is constantly polluted by shallow digital distractions like If you're supposedly resting on the couch, but you're rapidly scrolling through 4 different social platforms, you are carrying the toxicity of that input right into your recovery time.
You're not letting the default mode network do its job.
Exactly. So, are you ever truly resting? I want you to imagine what a single day of absolute zero digital input might unlock in your brain.
Just completely unplugged.
Try it. Step off the treadmill. Try letting your mind go completely uncomfortably blank and just see what kind of genius bubbles up.